Okay, so I might have to pause this at some point in time, um, just because it's been a crazy week or two, in a whole lot of ways. Kind of bad, kind of crazy. A lot of personal stuff, a lot of um, housing sort of disasters and everything like that. Yeah, it's been a hell of a week or two. But this is at this point in time of me talking to you is the weekend of Labor Day, which is the unofficial end of summer, the unofficial end of autumn, but more importantly than all that, to me, it's the beginning of the Halloween season, the greatest time of the year. Even though I'm born in June, I think autumn, especially dealing with all the spooky Halloween stuff, is my favorite. That being said, to celebrate that, I'm going to just give some suggestions. Now, at absolutely no point in time am I ranking anything. I'm terrible at doing that anyway. Everyone says, "Well, what's your top five?" I can't do that. I insanely can't do that. The most I could do is, what are like the top five books you've repeatedly read the most? I might be able to do that, uh, but not really in terms of what's my favorite of something else. So this is not a best of list. This is not a these are ones that you have to watch and you have to watch them in this way or anything else like that. This is basically, I just kind of had this idea of if I was to make just sort of a sort of spooky movie, horror movie, Halloween, sort of either not film festival, but if I was to do like I'm totally blanking on the words for it now. Did I write them down? So I would. Nope, no, I didn't. Uh, but some of these are like double features or little mini film festival if you want to do that. So these are just suggestions on that. That's it. So I know I don't not looking to get any comments of people. Well, it's stupid to put those movies together, and that movie sucks. Or how about why didn't you remember this? This is not a comprehensive list. I'm not a film expert. Anything. In fact, there's probably a lot of other movies that I forgot to put on anyway. But all this is just sort of like if you're like, man, it's starting to get around October, Halloweenish, and I need some stuff to watch, or you got some people over, these might be some suggestions of stuff to do. Now, a couple things might be a little weirdly put together, but some of that is because I just really wanted to add them to the list, and I was having some trouble figuring out how to pair them. And then was like, well, maybe these both are a little serious, so they can go with that together. Some of them might not work perfectly well for anyone other than me. They might not make sense to anyone other than me. And that's fine. So I'm just checking that because, again, like I said, there's a variety of disasters going on at any point in time with this. So I had to write these down, and that might be very YouTuber of me or something along those lines, but I don't care. I wrote them down because there's a ton of things, and I wanted to make sure that I put stuff in there together. Now, there's a lot of sort of double shots and goofy things like that in it, and then whatever I might have forgotten, I'll try and kind of pop in at the end, just be like, oh, remember these two. So, I'm going to start with. I kind of want to start with things that might help you sort of jumpstart the season. So, like this weekend, which is already passed by the time I put this up, but you know what I mean? Like this week or next week or just the very beginning, or even the beginning of October if you're really amping up like that, especially since, at least in Ohio or northern Ohio here, most of the haunted houses aren't even opening up into, they're not having any September days. There's no Halloween weekends for Cedar Point. A lot of these other places they have no September days, only like Friday, Saturdays in October, no Sundays, no Thursdays, all this other stuff. Some places are, depending upon how many things are there, They're switching which day which things open, like the haunted schoolhouse and laboratory in Akron. They're going to bounce back and forth between which one's open and which one's closed so they can disinfect it and all that. The Factory of Terror in Canton is having like a part A and a part B, again, for same reason. So time and money and everything as it is, this might be a good time just to sit and just totally watch movies and ignore everything else. I'm still going to hit some haunted houses, but so to kind of jump start everything, I like for that, and I can watch these movies pretty much all the damn time. Trick or Treat. It's Trick or Treat, the one with the little Sam, little jack o' lantern headed thing or anything else like that. House of a Thousand Corpses, The Fog, and Lost Boys. And you can either watch this now to jumpstart or wait till later on. Rocky Horror Picture Show. I'd also probably throw in Cabin in the Woods. So this is sort of more of a movie marathon with that, but with me personally, I would probably break them up a little differently. Like I might have The Fog and Lost Boys separately, and then having like Trick or Treat and House of a Thousand Corpses and Cabin in the Woods on a different thing. But that would be sort of my kickoff marathon. And I might save Rocky Horror to maybe like actually Halloween or like day before or something like that. Or, November 1st, just as a sort of like come down from it. But that's like almost my low dose of Halloween stuff, and those things kind of together, because I've seen them so many times. And the Fog not as much, but that's quickly becoming one, because I'd seen it way before and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and a good friend of mine is like loves it, so I was like, I need to watch this again because it's been forever. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Why have I not been watching this all the time like I do Lost Boys? So that's almost sort of like a jump start, you know, was it heavy load beginning sort of thing. So Trick or Treat, House of a Thousand Corpses, The Fog, Lost Boys, Cabin in the Woods. And I put Rocky Horror Picture Show down in there because that's one of those, I don't know where else to put it. I don't have a really good sort of team for it. I don't have a partner for it or some other place for it. And I have traditionally watched it either in the very beginning or in the very end of the Halloween season. So that's why that's kind of shoehorned in with that. Now, before I get to some more specific-y sort of things with this, I'm going to kind of keep Universal and Hammer movies kind of together, because that was always kind of where my first thing, like my mom and my uncle who got me into like sci-fi and horror movies and stuff like that. It was the Universal movies and the Hammer movies, and then like the movies with the giant bugs and monsters or aliens in the 50s and 60s that everyone was like, it's veiled communist paranoia. It's really what it was, and so I love all those things too. But it's the Universal and the Hammer ones were really the things that kind of got me into horror anyway. And I didn't watch a lot of the sort of ones that were out when they were out, like in the 80s. Like I saw Nightmare on Elm Street pretty close to after it was, like, my uncle let me watch it with them when I was probably too young for it. But so I watched a couple of those like with him, around the 80s and stuff like that. I think I'd probably had seen some of the other ones, just whatever was on TV or something that I was just sort of absorbing that way. But it wasn't until like my 20s and 30s and now where it's really been, sort of catching up for lost time and really delving in more than anything. But so, and some of these you can really do a lot with because they're relatively short. Like most of them are under an hour and a half. So you can marathon, sort of low dose marathon, just the starters of it. So the Dracula with Bela Lugosi, Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, the Mummy with Boris Karloff, and the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. and Claude Rains. The Mummy being something that is actually sort of like a personal favorite of mine for a variety of reasons. But you can kind of low dose those and really just kind of like, oh, okay, get into it from there. So another sort of jump start low dose for that. Some of the other ones now you can kind of double tap a little bit are Dracula's Daughter and Son of Dracula. Dracula's Daughter, to me, being the much better of the two. Son of Dracula does kind of have like a neat little twist with the leading sort of female with it, but Dracula's Daughter, like that one, I really like that one too. Like I've watched that a bunch of times. There's a Frankenstein sort of thing that you can go with that too, with Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein. So it's Frankenstein, the doctor's sons later on. So like the timeline of it like kind of jumps down. There are some crossovers that there's House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, and those usually kind of have a Dracula, a Frankenstein monster, probably a Wolfman or something in there too. So you can double tap those or add in Wolfman versus Frankenstein. If you do, for me personally, this is just me, I would save Wolfman versus Frankenstein to the end of that then sort of trilogy marathon, because as campy and fun as seeing all the other ones mixed in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, Wolfman vs. Frankenstein is kind of the better movie to me. Again, this is all completely subjective to me. I would probably skip the rest of the sort of Mummy franchise from the old Universal ones because they go off on a completely different tangent. That is, these two people found like this one. It's sort of like, it's kind of the same movie again and again, just done later on with people being older and then their kids. And they're all right to watch once in a great while, but I don't really watch them that often. I've seen them maybe twice or something. Once when I got the little box set things, and then once again because I'm like, what the hell, I'll watch them again. Or maybe I was writing or editing or doing something like that, and so I just had them as background. But you can probably skip that. So the next we're going to go through with the Hammer movies. So I'm going to take this in a couple of parts. I'm going to have it where there's a couple of them I would, again for me, I would sort of double tap, have my little double features, and then I'm going to describe how, if you want to marathon these whole ones, or which ones I would watch and how. So I'm going to skip around a little bit, because the main one, of course, is going to be Dracula, with Christopher Lee as Dracula, Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. So you can have one of the later, you can have a little double feature of the later ones with Dracula AD 1972 and the Satanic Rites of Dracula. Those kind of can pair together pretty well. They kind of flow from one to the other, and those kind of work together as a double feature there. The Frankenstein ones, Peter Cushing is Frankenstein. Curse of Frankenstein and Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, I would put together. And there's a couple other ones and stuff, but those two, I was like Frankenstein and the Creature from the Underworld or something like that. And you can add that in there too, but if, these two ones, he is a right bastard in these ones, and especially Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Oh, he is so bad. And the doctor in that, not the creature, the doctor is horrible. You're so waiting for him to get what he wants. And then the Hammer Mummy movies. Now you can double tap a couple of these. One, the Mummy, and then Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. That would be probably a pretty good double feature, because but if you want to marathon it, you can go the Mummy, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, the Mummy's Shroud, then Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. I don't think a lot, like especially Blood from Mummy's Tomb. Some of them I can't remember if they really link up super well or super great, as some of them also seem to be more of remakes of the Hammer Mummy movies that are the ones I said I don't really watch. I would probably watch the Hammer one if it was given. You watch these Hammer Mummy movies or these other ones from Universal that don't have Boris Karloff and your connection with the stuff going on with that and Zeta Johansson and everything. I'd watch the Hammer ones. So if you want a marathon, the Mummy, Curse from the Mummy's Tomb, Mummy's Shroud, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. If you just want to sort of double it, Then you probably Mummy, Blood from Mummy's Tomb, or also Cursed from Mummy's Tomb and Mummy's Shroud if you want to do that. Just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about again, like the weird. If this gets choppy or jumpy again, I'm sorry about that. I'm managing some crises at the moment right now. Well, I'm pretending to manage crises. I'm not doing actually that great of a good job right now, to be honest with you. So yeah, so those are a couple of things with that. Now, I'm just going to read off some of the Hammer, the Dracula ones. Again, Christopher Lee's in most of them as Dracula. Peter Cushing's in I think most, if not all of them. So the first one they had in Britain, it was just called Dracula. In America, it was called Horror of Dracula. So it goes Horror of Dracula, Brides of Dracula, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Dracula has risen from the grave, Taste the blood of Dracula, and Scars of Dracula. So that's the marathon right there. Horror of, Brides of, Prince of Darkness, Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood, Scars. That's the big marathon. Now, and I agree with this. I got a box set a while, like years ago, of these Hammer movies, and most of the ones I've said have been in there. And in that, the Dracula ones that were in it were Horror of Dracula, Risen from the Grave, and Taste the Blood of Dracula. That's a good trilogy if you're going to watch like the Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing ones. That's a good trilogy to go with. They all kind of link up. Apparently there's some cut scenes. I was just watching a timelines thing about this. As a movie timelines guy here on YouTube, he does a good job with a lot of these, a lot of work. There's some cut scenes in one, I think Risen from the Grave, I think, or maybe Prince of Darkness, that would make the way they flow from one movie to the other make more sense, but it's cut for some reason. But they went with, in the next one, the cut sort of thing as the continuity. So, but if you, so there's the longer marathon or the sort of trilogy that you can go with that. Horror of, Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood. I remember seeing Taste of, I don't know how old I was when I watched it, but I remember seeing it like before. And that one really like, I just remember there's some of these that really have an indelible memories for me of like the first time I've watched them. And in Taste the Blood of Dracula, when the sort of Lothario guy actually drinks like the remixed blood, and everyone freaks out and like kills him, and but then he like Dracula resurrects through his body, basically everything. It was like that blew my mind as a child. So that one was really sort of indelibly linked with that one. I like that one a lot for a lot of reasons. So that's sort of Universal and horror and Hammer ones. So I'm kind of keeping those a little compact with that, because again, I was trying to come up with like a lot of different ways to kind of do this, and kind of thematically in with that. So I want to go with a couple sort of perennial Halloween individual favorites. First, you can't get real. There's Tom Atkins and Linnea Quigley are going to be all over this place with it. You want a good Linnea Quigley double shot sort of thing, everything like that. Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Demons. Personally, for me, I'd probably watch Return of the Demons and then Night of the Demons and then Return of the Living Dead. But you can switch that up however you like. There's just more sort of, I guess, history with Return of the Living Dead for me and people I know. But Night of the Demons is in there too. So that's sort of like my Linnea Quigley sort of double feature. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I mean. So Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Demons. Tom Atkins is going to be all over this place. Don't worry, he'll get his time in because he's Tom Atkins. Another sort of like personal, individual sort of one is going to be Rob Zombie. So go with House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. 31, if I like 31. 31 was cool. Honestly, I love Rob Zombie. I've loved him ever since White Zombie came out. 30 years now or something like that. Like, he's amazing, great. I love interviews with him and stuff like that. Sherry Moon's wonderful, just amazing people. I love them. They got cool pugs. he's a Capricorn. I love my Cappies. I genuinely did not like Three from Hell. It really just seemed like, hey, I'm contractually have to make another movie, and I put this in. It's kind of like a weird, almost Rejects remake, and then there's supposed to be this short person there at the end you're supposed to care about because it was kind of a mess for me, and I might go back and watch it and maybe get more out of it later. I don't know, but my expectations might have been really high, and it really wasn't something I dug. Lords of Salem, on the other hand, I freaking love Lords of Salem, but I'm kind of saving that. And I love House of a Thousand Corpses. Devil's Rejects is really good too. House of a Thousand Corpses is so good. You might even be able to add that into the the sort of Halloween jumpstart with Trick or Treat and Fog and Lost Boys and Cabin in the Woods and stuff like that. If you want to break that up and throw House of a Thousand Corpses in with that, that'd be a good choice there too. Love that movie. Again, I like Devil's Rejects. I really do. I like 31. I love Lords of Salem. But I think if I were going to go for his sort of original ones, you could double feature House and Rejects is probably where I go from that. Now, double feature for me, and this might be weird for some people because it's taking two different franchises and putting them together, not even their first movies. Be Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and Halloween 3. So you wanted your Tom Atkins, here he comes in Halloween 3. Now, these are both sort of outside the actual sort of lineage of the rest of the franchises for each. Because Nightmare on Elm Street kind of, 2 kind of works, but if you're going to flow with the continuity and the kind of the larger story arc, it kind of skips 2 and goes right to 3. 2 is its own perfect thing. And, it's sort of like, you watched it, I've watched it a million times, watched before, and it's hilarious. I don't think of it in places I don't know if it was meant to be. And then there's a documentary about the lead kid in it. I think it's called Scream Queens or something like that. And I thought it was going to be silly, but it ended up, and it's the guy, was it Cecil, the guy who does Welcome to Night Vale, the reads and does the main voice for Welcome to Nightmare. Welcome to Night Vale. There we go. Is the narrator of it, and I think I saw it on Amazon Prime or something like that. It's really good. Like they're interviewing the guy. I forget his name. I'm blanking, and I'm sorry to the person. He has gone through so much shit in his life to be as sort of groovy and self-validated and everything that he is now is amazing. Like that, this guy has gone through shit and come out the other end. Now he's struggling with a lot of stuff still now and everything, but I highly recommend that if you're into these movies, or what, honestly, even if you never watched Nightmare on Elm Street, but you need a sort of empowering documentary that's a little quirky, I think it's called Scream Queens. Really good. Halloween 3 was supposed to be like, okay, this crazy stuff happening on Halloween night. We're getting away from Michael Myers, making it more of an anthology series. And that's why it really sort of tanked, because it didn't have Michael Myers in it and it had Halloween in the name. And 1 and 2 had Michael Myers, and that's what everyone was figuring it was going to be. But it wasn't. And that, too, is its own sort of wonderful, encapsulated, cheesy, hot mess of just 80s horror insanity. I've watched them together back to back, done my own little like twofer for these before, and you know what? I had a great night. I loved it. It was cool. I enjoyed the hell out of it. So that's another little double feature I think people will have fun with. Speaking of Halloween, you can do a lot of double features with Halloween. You can pretty much take it in sort of eras. So the original 1 and 2 you can double feature together. Rob Zombie's 1 and 2 double feature together. Or you do what I've done in the past. I've watched 1 and 2 and then watched the old and then the Rob Zombie remake kind of back to back like that. You can take You can again jump three, so you can take one and two of each the original and Rob Zombies. You can take four, five, and five, so that like Danielle Harris ones and everything like that, and put those together, and take H2O and Halloween Resurrection, so the ones in like the 90s. Pop those together and make those double features. Now, if you want to watch like 1, 2, 4, 5, H2O and Resurrection straight through, that's a marathon for you as well. I personally kind of like to double tap them. So yeah, 1 and 2, either one. I do like the Rob Zombie ones. I know there are purists and people who are like, oh, Rob Zombie this or anything like that. I don't care. I like them. I like them a lot. So, I'll double tap those. And then 4 and 5 together. And then H2O and Resurrection I like together too. Again, that's because they're sort of like they're bonded with that era sort of thing. So these ones are going to kind of be uh, next ones. There's a theme to these next ones. So one is British werewolves. So American Werewolf in London, classic one with that. I enjoy that. And there's a movie called Dog Soldiers. It has Kevin McKidd in it. And Kevin McKidd you might have seen in a ton of other stuff. He's in that Bon Rocco movie with I think Josh Hartnett's in that one too. But it's got Gawk. It's got I'm like it's got Woody Harrelson. I think it's got Ron Perlman. It's a neat movie. You should watch that one too. But it's not a Halloween movie. But he's also in things like the Rome TV show. He's like the main guy with that, and you've seen him in other stuff. I think he's in Train Spotting, and he's done voiceover work and stuff like that. It has that, and it has Sean Pertwee. And I'm going to throw this out to you, Sean Pertwee. You really just bite the bullet. Put on the gray wig and the frilly shirts, and pretend you're your dad, and be the third Doctor when they have Doctor Who crossovers with other Doctors. You should have done it for the 50th, or at least some other point in time by now. You've got William Hartnell's the original guy. Bradley, who's been in a ton of stuff, is sort of doing the William Hartnell first Doctor. So you have someone doing with that. Put on the wig, put on the frilly shirt, pretend you're your dad, and do the freaking crossover. Be the third Doctor. All right, Sean Pertwee, do that. Just do that. Anyway, but it's cool because it's basically these soldiers doing like their sort of war games in these woods, and they end up stumbling across these werewolves, and this werewolf is his family, and this girl's trying to get away from it, and there's sort of jokes about and anything else like that. There's some good like sort of death lines in some people, like one soldier basically is beating the snot out of this werewolf with a frying pan, but it's a giant werewolf, and they don't look like Teen Wolf werewolves. They look like big giant wolves walking around like people, sort of thing. So I kind of like that. But he's beating the snot out of this thing, and then it's still stronger and can heal and faster and everything than him, and then he's like, I hope I give you the shits. And it's like he got et, and it was terrible for him, but it was like, that's a good line to go out on. So American Werewolf in London, Dog Soldiers, there's your sort of British werewolf stuff. Bam, bam. In there with that. Now, there's a whole lot of movies with these things going into space. And I don't know if it was just a 90s thing, if it was just we ran out of stuff and the Coke's running dry and what's the craziest weird thing we can think of. But these dudes are going into space a lot. So there's stuff like Hellraiser 4, says Hellraiser Bloodlines, and it goes over time. So there's stuff going on in the past in like the 18th century to sort of show how the puzzle boxes got made. There's the dude who's supposed to be in the the contemporary when it's being filmed, and that's that guy's ancestor, and then his descendant later on in space. So that can kind of lead into it that way. You got Jason X, Jason in space, where he gets frozen and unthawed and wreaking terror on a spaceship, and then gets blown up, and then gets cyborg Jason. It's a hot mess. It's great. There's Leprechaun in space, which was insane, and Dracula 3000. Now Dracula 3000 is basically, it's just sort of, it really seems like a sci-fi original. I don't know if it was or not, but it might as well have been. Again, these it's cheesy ass movie, and But if you want your space horror, your cheesy space horror ones, not like Alien, but these ones that are just cheesy as hell. Hellraiser Bloodlines might be the more sort of, I guess, more sort of mature movie out of the bunch. You know, Jason X, Leprechaun in Space, Dracula 3000, definitely more campy, silly. Here we're just, it's just insane sort of thing. But that's the sort of, bam, your sort of space horror movie, cheesy horror movie in space marathon. And you can also, speaking of Leprechaun, there's Leprechaun in the Hood and Back to the Hood. Terrible movies. But at the very least, Leprechaun in the Hood. I haven't seen all of Back to the Hood. I've seen most of it, but chopped up. But cheesy as hell and really fun. So if you're just sort of hanging out and you're having something on, maybe you got people over and you want background thing that's like, holy crap, that was insane. Isn't this silly? And then you end up kind of talking over it. Man, they're fun. They're fun. Not going to lie. So there's a lot of other things that you can kind of put together in a lot of different ways. Some of these are going to be kind of mixed up and everything, and some of them you can just go with the series. You know, most of them you can just kind of run along with the series. If you want a marathon, like the Friday the 13th movies, there's nothing wrong with going on in the series or anything like that. What might be kind of cool as well is to hit the beginning of several series. So you can lump in Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, and Halloween all put together. Actually, I might watch it in that order too. It seems to have kind of like a woo kind of thing with it. But yeah, you can really sort of put stuff together. Or you can play around with the series. Like just take Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3. You know, because those are kind of together. And then 4 and 5 are kind of together. And these things kind of tinker in together in different ways. And they kind of have their own sort of like mini things that work really well together. Hellraiser 1 and 2. Hellraiser 1 and 2 are great. Like 1 is amazing. Second one is pretty fun and great. You get some backstory and stuff like that too. Fantastic. The other ones are kind of like, it's almost more anthology-ish and don't feed in as well. But I would not recommend them. You know, I've watched all of them. The ones that don't have Doug Bradley. The ones that don't have Doug Bradley as Pinhead, you can skip. Because even if the other movies are really, really bad, Doug Bradley as Pinhead is worth watching the whole movie just for Doug Bradley as Pinhead, in my opinion. Some people might disagree with that. They're like, no, these are garbage no matter what after 1 and 2. I don't care. I like Doug Bradley as Pinhead. I'll watch the whole movie with that. And I think one of them has Catherine Winnick, who's Lagertha Vikings theme in it. It's like one of the later ones. It's all cyberspacey sort of thing, everything. I forget which one because they're all named basically. Because I think Halloween or Hellraiser 2, I think is Hellbound instead of Hellraiser 2 or something like that. So you can do, yeah, you can do like a lot of the Friday the 13th together through 7, because then I think after 7 it starts getting maybe a little weirder. You know, the Tommy Doyle, not Tommy Doyle, that's the wrong one. That's Halloween. Anyway, so those are kind of more kind of together. You know, the ones, you know, Corey Feldman, the one character through like 3 movies kind of grows up or gets a little older. We start getting into you know, New York, to, you know, Manhattan, and then space and all that. That kind of loses the track of the sort of thing with that. But so you can kind of lump that in, or even just do like 1 and 3, something along those lines. So Tommy Jarvis, oh, I did write it down. Yes. So the Tommy Jarvis ones, if you want to do just that in it, is 4, 5, and 6. So you can do 4, 5, and 6. The Tommy Jarvis sort of trilogy of Friday the 13th movies is sort of encapsulated with that. So you can do like 1, 2, and 3 in one sitting, and then 4, 5, 6 in another one, and kind of go with that. I think the titles are Final Chapter, New Beginning, and Jason Lives. If my notes were done correctly. So those ones you can kind of like lump together in with that as well. Freddy vs. Jason, I don't know where the hell to put Freddy vs. Jason. I'm not going to lie. I do recommend watching it. It's terrible. It's again, it's cheesy. It's cheesy. But it's fun. I do enjoy watching it. and it hits a lot of sort of notes and everything along those lines. So I do recommend that. I just not 100% sure where to put it, to be honest. That's one of the ones I'm not 100% sure where to put. Maybe because I have another one that's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You definitely going to need to watch that. Definitely need to watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Maybe put those two together. That might work. I like. Oh, there's some other Wes Craven stuff. We'll get to that. Prom Nights. I've only ever seen one and two, and honestly, they're a lot better than I thought they would be. There, it's more of an anthology thing because it's one story one is one story and two is a different story, a completely different story. But you can watch them back to back, and they're still good. I like them. You might even maybe do two and then one, because one, I think maybe one's maybe a little bit put together better, unless you're just be prepared if you're going to watch the first one that there is a lot of disco in it. Like you're good for most of it, and then there's this huge section where you cannot escape disco. It is just beating you in the face. Like I was just dealing with some plumbing issues and toilet problem. I'm down in there trying to tighten stuff and getting drenched with that. That's disco in Prom Night 1. You're laying there just drenched with that. So now again, there's some other ones I'm trying to figure out now how to do us. Oh, you know what? I want to make sure that I tell you this as well. Nightmare Before Christmas is not going to be on this list. It's not because I don't like it. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a wonderful movie. I watch it almost every year. But do you know when I watch it? American Thanksgiving. Because American Thanksgiving is towards the end of November. So you get 3-4 weeks after Halloween, maybe 4 or 5 weeks until the sort of winter conglomerate of Christmas and Yule and solstice and all that other stuff, however you want to deal with it, and the later December. But it's a holiday in between those two, and that's when I like to watch Nightmare Before Christmas, is for Thanksgiving, or American Thanksgiving. So I'm not saying it because I don't like it. I didn't leave it off because I forgot. I left it off on purpose because I don't watch it during Halloween. I watch it on Thanksgiving. Like I watch Die Hard on Christmas. Die Hard is when I come home from my family's, I turn up the oven. I make some frozen samosas, the sort of the Indian food, because I love them. They're amazing. I eat them all throughout the year anyway. But this is my new tradition for the last few years. I make some samosas in the oven. I got some tea or some herbal. Technically, it's like a herbal drink because it's usually later at night. I'm not going to drink like caffeine tea. I got that. Got my samosas, maybe ginger or mint or both sort of tea. Got my samosas. Got my hot sauce on the side to dip them. Bam. Die Hard on Christmas because that's my Christmas movie. So I have that regulated with that. Okay. I'm gonna get one thing out of the way. I'm gonna get the Saw series sort of out of the way now. I have not seen the entire series. I've seen maybe the first 5, something along those lines. And if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen them. If I remember correctly, I tended to prefer 1 or 2 and 4. So I don't know if it had the Star Trek curse or something like that, where the even movies were better than the odd ones. I don't know. It's just the ones that I happened to like more, if memory serves. So if you want to watch the series, if I was to go, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to marathon Saw movies, I'd probably stop at 4. Not just because, all right, 4 movies of one thing is a lot at one sitting, but that's where I kind of remember it. If I remember correctly, I didn't like 5 that much. So I would probably just, all right, this is when it was still kind of a little bit more interesting. And then again, the movie timelines guy, I watched his thing with that. I'm all like, I'm just getting confused when Jigsaw is pretty much done. That's pretty much when I was done. Now again, I know people are gonna be like, you're an idiot. This other one was the best one of the whole thing, and da 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 da. I know. These are just, again, suggestions of what I would do for little marathons or double features. So I'm getting that out of the way now. Also want to give a shout out to the, let's see, it is, I think, the 18th season or series of Doctor Who, the original run. So it's the fourth Doctor, and he's with the second Romana. And it's the East Space adventures where they're kind of sucked into like this other sort of dimension. And they're, one of the serials is called State of Decay. And apparently, like, real vampires were enemies of the Time Lords from time immemorial, but they're just massive, huge, crazy, bloodlust monsters, just huge, massive things. And then all the sort of vampires we're used to seeing are sort of like spawn that they've made and aren't as dangerous. But apparently, giant vampires were a scourge of the Time Lords back in the way day. And they encounter some people from our dimension who got pulled in, became vampires, and are kind of feeding off of this world. So if you like vampires, you like Doctor Who, you want more than just like the one, maybe two episodes with Matt Smith, there you go. The East Space one, State of Decay, that's here. I think it's a 4 episode, not a 6 episode arc. I'm pretty sure it's four. So it's the fourth Doctor. So Tom Baker, my boy, that's, no matter how much I love the new Doctor Who's, and I do, they're, all of them have been great. And I think several, a lot of them, especially Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, are acting far beyond the writing they're getting. And if anyone has a problem with Jodie Whittaker as a doctor, then just shut up. You don't understand Doctor Who. You don't understand sci-fi. She's perfect as a doctor. She is quintessentially like just taken everything that the Doctor is, and that's her. She's amazing. Anyway, so yeah, so just kind of putting that. You want a little sort of thing with it. You can do that. It would be remiss of me if I did not talk about one of my personal heroes and favorite people who've ever lived, Vincent Price. Tons of movies. You can really not go wrong if it's a Vincent Price movie. You really can't. I've tried to narrow it down a little bit. I have some of these, and I tend to go with my. I do tend to lean towards the original House on Haunted Hill and the original House of Wax. Sorry, Vincent Price ones infinitely better than the remakes. Sorry, you know what? No, I'm not sorry at all. They're better. Vincent Price is in them. They're just better. He also had a lot of those sort of Edgar Allan Poe loosely based. I think it was Roger Corman ones or something like that. In back in the day. So you can. I would go with this little marathon of Pit and the Pendulum, House of Usher, Mask of the Red Death. That would be a good little package, a good little quantum of sort of those movies too. There's a bunch of, there's a ton of Vincent Price movies, and a ton of them are either cheesy or some are really good. I mean, he was great. You can't go wrong with Vincent Price. Those are a couple little things you can do with that as well. So, going back, again, marathon ones, if you want to do, I haven't really watched all these, or the originals or something like that. I think I've missed one or two. But you got the Romero, the George Romero zombie movies, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead. You can marathon those in there with that. Night of the Living Dead also being a certain social commentary that kind of gets missed sometimes, I think. So you can do that. Also, again, not sorry. I love the Scream movies. I just watched them again. At first I didn't. I thought they were super cheesy. Ingrown hair is bothering me. I thought they were, when they came out, I remember when they came out, and I'm like, this is stupid. I never watched them when they came out. Started watching them maybe 5 years ago, 6, something along those lines. And I'm like, holy crap, why did I not watch these? Because they are completely aware of what they are. And I love that. I love that about things that are like, this is what we are, this is what we're about. We're not trying to put on airs about anything else. It's making fun of the genre, and then starts making fun of itself and everything like that. And I really enjoy them. I do. They're fun. I really enjoy watching them. So you marathon the Scream movies, break them up, maybe 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, or something along those lines. I'm sorry, you can't go wrong with that. I liked them. They're fun. They're good. Got to pause here. All right, it is super later than when I was at before. I didn't expect to be waiting this long. Under normal circumstances, I would just redo this whole thing, but since this was just sort of such off the top of my head in a lot of ways, I just will kind of go, hopefully pick up the threads of where I was. So, sorry about that. So if I remember correctly, I left off with the Romero sort of trilogy or series, and then Scream. Another thing to kind of have a nice little two-shot of would be the Creepshow movies. I was just talking with someone about this the other day too. They hadn't seen it, and I was scolding them. The first one is clearly better than the second. Not just because the Romero Stephen King combination and how goofy Stephen King was in his thing. It is better, and Where's My Cake and Found My Cake Bit and everything are pretty indelible parts of running jokes with a few people with me now too. I am more familiar with the second one because I've seen that on TV more back in the day, and by more I mean like twice or something like that. But the sludge monster out of the lake freaked me the hell out, and it was really weird for me to see like old Dorothy Lamour because I was so used to seeing Dorothy Lamour from like the 40s in the Road 2 movies with Bing Crosby and Bob Hope and everything, and now she's like 40 years or later, like 70s or 80s or something like that. So it was like, oh my God, that's her. But those would be kind of like a fun sort of thing. It almost feels like the Creepshow movies, since they're both sort of like vignette and anthology sort of things. It almost is like, again, like a party movie, a party double feature. So if you have people over and you got things going on, you can have the Creepshow movies come out because they're anthologies. There's several stories going on, so you can come in and watch one for a little bit, and then you pick up a conversation with someone, and then you don't have to worry about the whole rest of the plot of the movie because you saw the 10 15 minutes of the one or something like that. Almost like if you had in I mean, even put in like old Tales from the Crypt or something like that and do that. Now, as a side note, now that I'm thinking about that, Tales from the Crypt and the old Twilight Zone, and even Outer Limits, but I'm not going to lie, I'm a bigger fan of the Twilight Zone, would be fantastic to just marathon. The old Twilight Zone is brilliant, super cozy. They all have a moral. Some of them are like really, really like mind-blowing. Holy crap. And a lot of fun and everything else like that. So again, if you want just an all-day marathon, or again have something on while you've got people over, anything along those lines, hey, you can't go wrong with the old Twilight Zone, man. Not at all. So I mean, I already talked about a Doctor Who thing, so I know it's supposed to be movie marathon sort of thing, but honestly, marathon the crap out of the old Twilight Zone too. Tales from the Crypt is good and all that as well. Another two shot, if you want to, I don't see why not. At least, again, maybe like an afternoon sort of thing, and to set yourself, maybe you matinee these, go out, get something to eat, come back, watch other stuff, something like that. The two Elvira movies, Elvira Mistress of the Dark, and then Elvira's Haunted Hills. There's like a significant gap of time between the two movies. Mistress of the Dark was in the 80s. I forget when. I want to say Haunted Hills is probably early 2000s, something like that. But they're fun. I mean, they especially the second one kind of knows what it is. It's not really, they're not really trying to go for, oh, we're going to make Elvira like a hardcore, like legitimate thing or anything. They're campy. They kind of know what they are. They're having fun with it. They're fun. I enjoy them. I always liked Elvira, even as like a little kid and everything else like that. So those are fun as well. So you can do a lot with also directors. You get the Wes Cravens, the John Carpenters, and everything like that. Some stuff's going to be a little bit better than others, to be fair. If you really, I mean, we already talked about Halloween. We already talked about The Fog. I'm skipping The Thing because, quite frankly, when I watched it, and granted, I watched it a long time ago, I didn't like it. And I didn't like it because it was such a departure from the original movie with James Arness as The Thing. The original movie I had seen and many, many times, and have seen many, many times since, and I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. one of the things I really liked about it is the way the dialogue was like hyper realistic, not hyper realistic, but it was very realistic because people were, uh, there was some like in jokes. You're like, what did he mean by that? But they don't really explain it. But you can pick up the context clues of kind of stuff that's going on. People kind of talking over each other and everything. And the stuff with the monster was kind of creepy. There's one thing where they put this barricade on the door, but the door opens up the other way, so the monster could just open it up and move the barricade. It was pretty funny. I really didn't like. Maybe I'd feel differently if I watched it again, because this again I've seen it many, many, many years ago. So if I saw it again now, I might feel different about it, especially being more experienced, not only in terms of being discerning with movies and film and TV, but also getting more John Carpenter stuff under my belt, which would also include Vampires and was it Vampires Los Muertos? Not great movies, but again, kind of fun to watch. I think Vampires is the one with James Woods, and that's just like crazy stuff. I think Los Muertos has John Bon Jovi or something like that. One of them has Cheryl Lee, and it was unfortunate that, I'm sorry, it was unfortunate that Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me came out at the same time as Silence of the Lambs. And even saying that, and even loving Silence of the Lambs, and Jodie Foster did an amazing job, Cheryl Lee deserved to get the Oscar in that year because as good as a job as Jodie Foster did in Silence of the Lambs, she did not have to do nearly anywhere close to what Cheryl Lee had to do for Fire Walk with Me, and not only pulled off, but was amazing at doing it on all levels. I'm not going to get too into that, but anyway, so that, something you can go in. Oh, that's what that is. Sorry, I was like, what is that sound? I know what that is now. All right, it's the cat. She's still here, which is good. I was a little worried there for a minute. Now, if you want, again, this might be more of an afternoon matinee sort of double feature. And the reason why is because both of these are TV movies. They're early Wes Craven movies. And I know I'm forgetting like Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that, but honestly, some stuff, if I've seen them, it's been years, I don't really remember them. But I did watch a couple months ago during quarantine stuff because I'm just like, I wanted to watch more Wes Craven stuff. I couldn't find Cursed, which is one of the movies on here that's sort of like a um, honorary mention because I couldn't figure out where to put it in. I can't even read my writing on some of this. Oh, New Nightmare. I don't know why I wrote it so horribly. So I don't know. There's some things I just didn't know how to put in, like maybe put Cursed with People Under the Stairs. But they're kind of campy and they both, again, kind of know what they are and they're both kind of fun. But they don't really fit together. New Nightmare is something that kind of doesn't fit in some of these other ones too, because even though you can watch it with the Nightmare on Elm Street thing, the play of it is a little different. So maybe if you watch Cursed and New Nightmare together, because they kind of have that 90s sort of thing with it, and then you watch that around when you watch the Scream movies, that might all kind of work together as kind of a marathon. So there's a few of them I was like, I really wanted to put on, but I wasn't sure how. I figured out, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Cabin in the Woods, that was cool. There's a couple of them I'm going to get to here that are really important that I really think people need to watch. But, so the Wes Craven TV movies are Stranger in Our House, which had Linda Blair in it, and this young woman pretends to be their cousin who is going to live with them, and she was really a witch and was, screwing up everyone's lives and all this other stuff. And Invitation to Hell, which had Susan Lucci as like a Satan who's running this country club that's getting people to join in and like sell their souls to this country club. And I think Robert Ulrich was the guy who was like new to there and kind of fighting it and everything. And he was like this tech thing, so they had to go in and help with like some super space suit he was helping the thing, so we had to put that on to go through the hell door to go rescue people out of hell that Susan Lucci was doing. It was wild. Like, I watched those two within maybe a week of each other, and I think they would probably work really well together as a double feature, like a Wes Craven 70s TV movie, late 70s early 80s, yeah, TV movie, marathon. Again, maybe good for matinee. while you're having lunch and hanging out. Maybe you go watch these in like the afternoon or something like that. You go have dinner, then go to, if you're going to go to a haunted house or something, that might be a nice kind of day with that. So did that. So we can have also a sort of Pagans Win double feature with the Wicker Man, and I have not seen the Nicolas Cage remake at all, but I do enjoy the Christopher Lee 70s one. I'm sorry, I'm going to probably be a little biased towards movies where the pagans win. Now, I will caveat to that, the creepy thing for these to me, especially in Midsommar, is groups of white people. Large groups of white people, especially if there's some sort of religious or some sort of unifying sort of um, life identifying sort of thing with them, is scary to me. I know that it's going to be like, dude, you're the most palest Nosferatu looking cat around. I understand. I'm super white. That might be why white people creep me out. I don't know. Where I live, I remember driving down the street, and there were and there's like some Catholic schools and stuff down there, so there might have been some sort of homecoming thing for the Catholic schools or something. I don't know, because it was like 5 in the afternoon, and there's just on each side of the road, there's just rows of white people, and they're all staring at the road. No one's smiling. Excuse me. No one's smiling. No one's having a good time. No one's doing anything. It's just they're just either standing or sitting there. Just that's creepy to me. That's creepy to me. I can understand going into some like ghetto area and people looking at me like this, or maybe staring you down, or something, or just ignoring you because whatever energy you're putting out is like, all right, we'll leave that dude alone. I'm fine with that. This group of white people stuff is scary, but on the other hand, it's pagans and the pagans win on both. And Florence Pugh in Midsommar, which would be the second part. So the Wicker Man in Midsommar, she was freaking amazing in that. Just having like being really anxietal and then super broken down about what like her family dying in that horrible tragic way in the beginning. Also, it's cool because it's like super cozy because the opening thing, it's like trees and snow and it's super cozy if you're someone like me. And then like her whole thing was like super tragic, and you see her trying to kind of go through with things, and just how emotionally manipulative and basically emotionally abusive her dipshit asshole piece of crap boyfriend was, and like her dealing with that and then kind of coming through the other side. And it was like it was like she had this sort of toxic femininity on one side, and then the Swedish sort of coven thing had almost there was almost a toxic femininity with it because it was so disillusioned from the self being able to go through its journey. Granted, like interconnection and separation between anything really is like the sort of ultimate illusion. But then again, we're still incarnating in these three-dimensional bodies that have a certain ego to them, and so while there's still interconnection, you still have to do your sort of spiritual work, and they as that group kind of weren't, but she was able to kind of come out through both of those. And granted, like a ton of people died, but she was able to come out through both of those as a more complete person, and then like her acting through that was amazing. So Wicker Man, the 70s version, and Midsommar would be really, I think, a nice little pagans win creepy white people double feature for that. Okay, now I tried to again, there's some of them that I want to put in. I'm not exactly sure how. Like we talked about Cursed, which I think is Wes Craven's, got Christina Ricci's Werewolves. It's funny. Again, it's funny. It's campy. It kind of knows what it is, and I enjoyed watching it. I only watched it a few months ago or maybe last year, and didn't watch it when it came out. Didn't really know anything about it until like last year. Now I can't find it on like Amazon or whatever the heck I was watching it. But that zombies, the Fulci zombies movie was just super kind of creepy. New Nightmare, again, even though it's Nightmare on Elm Street, it's kind of like not really Nightmare on Elm Street because it's supposed to be, real world and Freddy coming in, but it still goes with that sort of Dream Master demon sort of thing. And yeah, maybe like Final Nightmare, New Nightmare do their own thing or something like that, maybe. So I also want to talk about, I mentioned People on Their Stairs, also Nightbreed, a little weird, Clive Barker kind of stuff. I get, it's not one of my favorites, but once in a while I get kind of like, I kind of want to watch Nightbreed. I don't know. It's like a weird thing, and it's usually an afternoon thing. Like if it gets night, and I'm thinking maybe I want to watch Nightbreed, but it comes night, and I haven't watched it. I'm not watching it because for some reason it just has that afternoon. I don't know how it was in some other cities, but in the Cleveland area, you had your Saturday morning cartoons, and then like early to late afternoon, there was a couple of things like Superhost or something like that that would have kind of cheesy movies up there. Whether it's Godzilla stuff or whether it's again those 50s monster movies that's like, no, we're really afraid of communists, but monsters, okay? Anything like those, stuff like that was put on then, and those were fun. And Nightbreed feels to me like that. So it was hard for me to kind of put in a category or to pair it with something. There's a couple things like I could in terms of time and maybe of film and stuff like that if you want like an aesthetic sort of matching, but I don't necessarily want an aesthetic matching. I kind of want more of a thematic matching. So it was hard for me to figure out where to put that. Same thing, kind of People Under the Stairs, Cursed, Zombies, New Nightmare, something like that. Mentioned Cabin in the Woods with this sort of jump starters pack in with that. But I wanted to make sure that a few other movies got put in. Besides I think it's Wes Craven, was it Dracula 2000? And that one's the one with Gerard Butler is Dracula, and I think Christopher Plummer is Van Helsing, and it takes place now. Like Jennifer Esposito and Jerry Ryan were sort of the brides that came out. I think Omar Epps is in it, I think, and one of the '70s show dudes, the jerk one. Well, the jerk one who got in trouble for being a jerk, I guess. But that's sort of cheesy. Again, that's another one where I kind of get like, I kind of want to watch this. And I think part of the reason is because it had I thought, an interesting take on the origin of Dracula and the reason for the things that vampires are supposed to be sort of freaked out by. Because in that one, spoiler alert, Dracula was originally Judas, but God wouldn't sort of let him die and cursed him to be a vampire. So that's why silver and the cross and those things are things that he doesn't like. Unfortunately, it does also have the, oh, I bite you, you immediately turn into a vampire thing. I hate that part. I think I hate that the sort of zombie contagion vampire sort of thing. I like it if you're going to be a vampire and I go out and I bite someone and I feed on them. Not I just feed on them, unless I actively turn them into a vampire. That's what I like with it. Besides that, I think there were two more, and I think it's Ascension and then Legacy. And one of them is so Dracula can sort of shapeshift, so almost like regenerate, like in Doctor Who. And Ascension and Legacy are much more together. Like Dracula 2000 was sort of the beginning, and it's supposed to go on from that, but they're kind of just their own thing. One of the London's, Jason or Jeremy, I forget which, is in it. The redheaded lawyer from, I think, Law and Order SVU, and I think Jason Scott Lee. And one of them, I feel like one of them, some dude who looks like he wants to be Billy Idol when he grows up as Dracula, and then the other one, I think Rutger Hauer becomes Dracula. But those two, I mean, again, kind of cheesy. every once in a while I get kind of a hankering for it. And kind of with those subspecies movies too. Every once in a while I'm kind of like, man, these are terrible. They're not good at all. But sometimes it's like, I kind of want to watch that. So those are just sort of other little honorable mention things with that too. But I definitely have to put Pumpkinhead on here. Definitely have to put Pumpkinhead, especially at least the first one. I've only seen like one and two. Two is another one if you want some more Linnea Quigley, but she's in it for only like a minute or two or anything like that. So if you're looking for Linnea Quigley movies, don't worry about Pumpkinhead 2. But the first Pumpkinhead with Lance Henriksen, holy crap, that is such a fucking heartbreaking movie. Oh, it's so damn sad because him and his son are so adorable together, and it's so heartbreaking when his kid dies. Like, yeah, you understand why he's gonna go and try and get revenge on these idiots, and 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 then how tragic it is that if you call up Pumpkinhead, you end up turning into him, and how he stops himself. Oh my God, it's like I love that movie. It's so good. I really, really, really like it, and it was just really hard for me to put in anywhere. I couldn't figure out where to put it in terms of having some sort of double feature or marathon with it. So maybe pop it in with Lords of Salem, because again, you have this sort of someone going through this transformation that's really ends up being sort of tragic with it. It's way more sort of psychedelic and things with it. I think Rob Zombie really outdid himself with that. If anyone wants to bitch about Rob Zombie's movies, which again, except for, I mean, 31 was cool. Like I liked it. But I mean, except for Three from Hell, if you want to bitch about, Rob Zombie movies, you can't bitch about Lords of Salem. It's a really good movie. But I mean, so in terms of really good movies where the lead is going through like a really sort of traumatic and kind of messed up transformation thematically, okay, but I mean they're 20-25 years apart or more or something like that. They don't feel anywhere near the same. Pumpkinhead's out in this like desert, Lords of Salem's in New England. They don't look or feel really anything like each other. So it'd be really hard for me to say that would be a good double feature, but I do think that they are sort of musts in a maybe in a longer stretch Halloween movie sort of marathon going over days. Like I really think that they're good for that. And sort of finally with that, again, not knowing exactly where to put them, Mandy and Color Out of Space, two of Nicolas Cage's more recent additions to his insane canon. Color Out of Space being a H.P. Lovecraft story. A thing falls out of space, and the radiation, whatever's going on, is like kind of driving the family mad and mutating things and everything like that. And then yeah, you see sort of calm, normal person Nick Cage, and then he starts becoming weird, crazy sort of thing, everything like that. And I enjoyed it. It's good. But damn, Mandy. I love Mandy. It's so good. It's supposed to take place in the 80s. The first like 20 minutes, you could probably just keep, it was like you get so cozy with the first 20 minutes. You could just like, I could just keep watching this, because it's Nick Cage is a logger, and he lives with his wife in this kind of isolated thing, and she's clearly got like a lot of trauma in her past and stuff like that. She even tells a story from like her childhood with her dad being all messed up. But she's reading, and she kind of works at the shop, and and they're super sweet together, and he's really sweet to her and everything else like that, and really sort of validating. Like they're really sweet together. And then like, oh, this is going to get messed up. It's going to get messed up bad, and I don't want to see it get messed up bad. But it does. It gets messed up bad because dude who was the English king in Vikings, comes in and he's this. I mean, it almost seems like maybe it's a little Manson based because he is sort of a failed musician cult leader. It's basically what it is. And he sort of wants Mandy. And, they track them down to their house. And supposedly there's also involved, there's some sort of weird biker gang cult thing that they're either actual demons or they had some sort of real bad LSD back in the day and it turned them into practically like the Reavers from Firefly is basically what they are, except on Earth and bikers. And this cult is sort of, making deals with them somehow and everything else like that. But they find them, they drug the shit out of Mandy, and they have Nick Cage locked up and even drugged. She laughs as Linus Roach. That's the actor's name, Linus Roach. I know I get there. I forget King something in England, the one that Ragnar was kind of buddies with and Lagertha slept with. The one who was also like friends with I almost said Applestan because that's my joke name for him, but Athelstan. So that's it. He's the cult leader with it. And man, since she spurns him, they like just murder her by lighting her on fire and make Nick Cage watch, and he's like wrapped up in what, barbed wire and stuff. Eventually, he pulls himself out, and all of a sudden, so the whole rest of this is absolute crazy, batshit insane revenge, nasty, gnarly revenge. Like he goes absolutely Nick Cage crazy on both like the biker demons and this cult. And there's like chainsaw, like there's a chainsaw fight, and it's awesome. It's insane. There's one guy, is almost like this telepathic dude, has like a tiger, and he's like making the drugs and stuff. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I saw it not too far away from when I saw Midsommar, which was interesting because they both kind of have this A-frame sort of temple thing at the end, and they both end up burning. They both end up burning for different things, but it was sort of like, oh, this is a weird sort of connection with that. And he even like finally, like, yeah, the cult Linus Roach is like the last guy left, and Nick Cage, after like murdering the crap out of everything in a horrible way, like it's a just brutal but awesome like psycho revenge thing. And he sees him, and he was like, he says the line, and I forget who. It's like a Joseph Campbell line or something like that. It's something along those lines. But it was like, the psychotic drowns where the mystic swims. That, so have that sort of subconscious shadow work going on. So he's like, so he tells him that it's like the psychotic drowns where the mystic swims. Like, I'm swimming, you're drowning, I'm your god now. And he's like murdering it. It was like, whoa, that bastard killed Mandy, get him. And so since they both have like a lot of sort of colorful cinematography, not cinematography, that's, I don't know, that sounds like a pastry or something. And a quick progression of Nicolas Cage going batshit crazy, sort of normal and then crazy sort of thing, but then the crazier gets worse as time goes on. Like, I think that can kind of put them together. I would probably watch Color Out of Space first and then Mandy. Part of that is because I like Mandy more, and part of it is it kind of gives more of a payoff for it. You know what I mean? There's more of a sort of catharsis at the end of Mandy that might be better. You definitely don't want to watch them if like you're like, oh well, these are fun little pick-me-ups, I'm going to bed afterwards. No, you probably want to have some processing time. I would not be under some sort of influence of that, because set and setting with those movies on there are going to mess you up. but I wanted to make sure that I got, especially like Lords of Salem, Mandy, and Pumpkinhead in there somehow because I couldn't figure out how to fit it in the end of these things. Like it's like you can see, like I'm making lists. I was trying to put stuff together and I was drawing lines between them and trying to figure all that stuff out. But there you have it, a sort of Halloween season list of double features and marathons to get you through whatever quarantine craziness is going on with haunted houses and their hours and cutting back on days and who knows what we're allowed to do gathering around people or any of that other stuff. So good luck. I hope maybe that gives you something to kind of, yeah, maybe we'll take these examples as something we can do to watch. Maybe it is sort of like, no, that's a good idea. Like set up our own like marathons or double features. I know some people have like the projectors so they can show stuff on their garage, or I know a couple people are watching stuff on porches and things like that, which is cool. Or however you guys got your setup going on. Or if any of the movies maybe you haven't seen and you'd like to, or you meant to and you'd like to, or anything, this might give you opportunity to do that. So this is also just sort of a thought experiment I was doing for me, because actually a lot of these things I've been watching, especially during quarantine anyway, so I might have kind of prematurely jumped the gun on some of my Halloween watching during all the quarantine stuff. I just felt like I wanted to watch the stuff, so now I got to figure out what to do. I can't really peruse the library because they're only doing call-in drive-up stuff, at least the one by me, which is lame, but so yeah, some suggestions, some combinations, and again, all completely subjective. I'm not telling you these are best lists or only watch these with the and nothing else or anything. Oh, you know what? I just realized another thing that might go in, maybe with Color Out of Space and maybe Mandy, the original Suspiria. Haven't watched all the way through the remake series. Got maybe 45 minutes to an hour in or anything else like that, and I liked it, but I was feeling something, watching something else or something popped on Netflix or Hulu or something. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how that worked out. I think it was before I got hooked on to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But I like that. But the original movie's cool. Again, super colorful, um, little psycho crazy and stuff like that. Kind of weird, but might work in with that too. I had it written down. Forgot to mention Suspiria. Okay, so that, as I said, completely subjective. This is just my sort of opinion thing on what might be cool things to mainline while this sort of quarter lockdown or whatever we're doing is still in effect, and some other Halloween fun things are either chopped up or not there at all. So, all right, happy Halloween.